All right, diving right in. We're tackling something that I know a lot of our listeners struggle with, and I know I do too sometimes, building confidence when speaking English.
Yeah, it can be tough.
Yeah, it's kind of a mental game more than anything, right? And today we've got this really cool transcript from the English Leap podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can pull out some practical strategies that people can actually put into practice.
Absolutely, like actionable stuff, right? Not just like believe in yourself.
Exactly, exactly. Because I think we've all heard those vague tips before, and they don't always help in the heat of the moment, when you're actually trying to speak.
Oh, totally. You freeze up and all that goes out the window.
So first things first, I think it would be helpful to really define what we mean by confidence when it comes to speaking English.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think a lot of people have this idea that it means being like super fluent, never making a mistake, having this perfect accent.
Right, like you're a natural born speaker, totally effortless.
But that's not really it at all, is it?
No, definitely not. I mean, even native speakers, they make mistakes, they hesitate, they have those moments where they can't think of the right word.
Right, right. Everyone does.
And this transcript, it actually emphasizes that confidence is much more about how you feel about yourself and your ability to communicate, even if it's not perfect.
It's about that self-belief,
Hmm.
knowing you can get your message across, even if you stumble a bit along the way.
Right. And I think one of the biggest takeaways I got was that it's not about being fearless. Because let's face it, most of us are going to feel some level of nervousness when we're speaking a second language.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally normal to feel those butterflies.
Yeah, and this transcript, it really highlights that confident people, they don't let that fear paralyze them. They're willing to take risks, to step outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, they don't let the fear of making a mistake stop them from trying.
Right. Exactly. So, like, instead of being afraid to speak up in class, they might volunteer to answer a question, even if they're not 100% sure they're right. Or they might try using a new phrase in a conversation, even if they're a little unsure of the pronunciation.
Because they know that making mistakes is part of the process. It's how you learn.
And that's another key point that stood out to me, this idea of viewing mistakes as opportunities to learn.
Right, rather than as some kind of personal failing.
Yeah, it's about having that growth mindset, like, okay, I messed up, but what can I learn from this? How can I improve next time?
And I think confident people also tend to be more resilient. They don't let a few setbacks completely derail them.
Like, if they have one awkward conversation, they don't let that convince them that they're terrible at English and they should just give up.
They bounce back, they learn from it and move on.
And this transcript also touched on some interesting social aspects of confidence, like how confident people tend to handle compliments.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. They don't downplay their achievements.
Exactly. Instead of saying, oh no, my English is still bad, they'll just accept a compliment with a simple thank you,
They own their progress.
which is something I think a lot of us struggle with. We're so quick to point out our flaws.
Yeah, it's like we don't want to seem arrogant or something.
But it's important to acknowledge our successes, even the small ones. It helps build that self-belief.
Definitely. And another point they made was about making decisions without overthinking everything.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time.
Me too. I'll spend like 5 minutes trying to decide how to phrase a simple email.
Exactly. But confident speakers, they seem to have this ability to just go with the flow, to trust their instincts.
And they're not afraid to ask for clarification if they need it. Like if they don't understand something, they'll just say, can you repeat that? Or can you explain that in a different way?
Instead of pretending they understand and then feeling lost.
Right. And I loved what they said about authenticity.
Oh, me too. Being yourself, not trying to be someone you're not.
Yeah, like not forcing some weird accent or using super complicated vocabulary just to impress people.
Because that just comes across as unnatural, right?
Totally. And it can actually make you feel less confident because you're not being true to yourself.
So, confident speakers, they embrace their own style, their own way of speaking.
And that often makes them more engaging and interesting to listen to.
And you know what else surprised me? They talked about active listening being a sign of confidence.
That is interesting. You'd think it would be all about talking.
Right, but they made this point that confident people, they're often really good listeners because they're not so focused on themselves and how they're coming across.
They're genuinely interested in what other people have to say.
And that can actually make conversations feel more comfortable and natural for everyone involved.
So it's not just about how much you talk, it's about how you interact with others.
Exactly. So we've talked about what confidence looks like, but what about the flip side? What are some signs that you might be lacking confidence when you speak English?
Yeah. What are some of the red flags?
Well, this transcript, emphasized the importance of self-awareness, being honest with yourself about how you feel and how you react in certain
So
situations.
like paying attention to those internal cues, right?
Exactly. And one of the biggest signs, they said, is constantly worrying about what other people think of your English.
Oh yeah, that fear of judgment. It can be crippling.
Like, you're so worried about making a mistake or sounding silly that you end up not speaking at all.
Or you speak very quietly, almost like you're hoping no one will notice you.
Right, and that can actually make you less understandable, which then just reinforces the feeling that you're not good at English.
It's a vicious cycle.
And they also mentioned physical signs, like avoiding eye contact.
Oh yeah, I've definitely done that. It's like you're trying to become invisible.
And then there's the classic overthinking everything.
Oh, that's my specialty.
Mine too. Replaying conversations in your head, analyzing every little mistake, wishing you had said things differently.
It's exhausting.
And it doesn't help at all, right? It just makes you feel worse.
No, it just feeds that self-doubt,
And then, of course, there's the hesitation, those long pauses while you're searching for the right word or trying to construct the perfect sentence.
which can make conversations feel really disjointed and awkward.
But the good news is that confidence is not something you're either born with or you're not. It's a skill, and it can be developed.
Right. You can learn to be more confident.
And that's where the really practical part of this transcript comes in. They lay out some really actionable strategies that anyone can use.
So tell me, what were some of your favorite tips?
Well, one that really resonated with me was this idea that action often precedes confidence.
That's interesting. So you don't wait to feel confident before you start taking action.
Exactly. Because sometimes that feeling of confidence, it doesn't come until after you've actually started doing the thing that scares you.
It's like you have to fake it till you make it, in a way.
Kind of, yeah. It's about taking those small steps even if you don't feel ready.
And building momentum.
Yeah.
Right. Each small success gives you a little boost.
Exactly. So instead of waiting until you feel perfectly fluent to start speaking, try setting yourself small, achievable goals.
Like what kind of goals?
Like maybe you challenge yourself to say hello to a stranger in English, or you order your coffee without switching to your native language, or you leave a short voicemail message in English.
It's about getting comfortable with those everyday interactions.
And the transcript even compares it to practicing for a big presentation. You don't just show up on the day and hope for the best. You practice beforehand, you get feedback, you gradually build up your confidence.
And it's the same with learning new vocabulary. You start by trying to use those new words in casual conversations before you try using them in a more formal setting.
It's about baby steps. And that ties into another important strategy they talked about, embracing progress over perfection.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Letting go of that need to be perfect.
Because that's just setting yourself up for failure. Nobody's perfect, especially when it comes to language learning.
Right. It's a journey, not a destination.
And this transcript, they had this great idea of aiming to be just 1% better every day.
I like that. It makes it feel much more manageable.
Right, you're not trying to become a fluent speaker overnight. You're just focusing on making small, consistent improvements.
And celebrating those wins along the way.
Definitely. Because every little bit of progress helps build your confidence. And speaking of building confidence, they talked a lot about the importance of your internal dialogue, like how you talk to yourself.
Oh, self-talk. That can be so powerful.
It really can, because if you're constantly telling yourself, my English is terrible, or I'm going to make a fool of myself, then you're just reinforcing those negative feelings.
You're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. So the transcript recommends actively challenging those negative thoughts and replacing them with more positive and realistic affirmations.
So like instead of thinking, I can't speak English well, you might say to yourself, I'm learning and I'm getting better every day.
Right. Or instead of, I'm going to embarrass myself, you might say, I'm brave enough to try, and that's what matters.
It's about shifting your perspective, focusing on the positive.
And they also talked about controlled exposure as a way to build confidence.
What does that mean?
It means gradually exposing yourself to situations that make you nervous, but in a controlled way. So you're not just throwing yourself into the deep end.
Oh, I see. So like starting with something small and then gradually increasing the challenge.
Exactly. They suggested things like having conversations with yourself in English, then maybe texting or emailing in English, then maybe joining a language exchange group online.
It's about building up your comfort level in stages.
And I think that's really important because sometimes we avoid those situations that make us nervous, and that just keeps us stuck in our comfort zone.
Right. You never get the chance to practice and improve.
And then there was another really interesting point they made about body language.
Oh, yeah, how our physical presence can affect our confidence.
Exactly. Like standing tall, making eye contact, speaking clearly. These things can actually make you feel more confident, even if you don't believe it at first.
It's like you're tricking your brain into feeling more confident.
Kind of, yeah. And they even talked about power poses, like adopting these expansive postures that can actually have a positive effect on your mood and your confidence levels.
I've heard about that.
Hmm.
It's amazing how much our body language can influence how we feel.
It really is. So just remember, before you start speaking, take a deep breath, stand up straight, and smile. It can make a big difference.
And then, of course, there's the importance of surrounding yourself with supportive people.
Yes. Having a positive and encouraging environment is so crucial for building confidence.
Because if you're constantly being criticized or put down, it's going to be really hard to feel good about yourself and your abilities.
And they made a great point about being your own cheerleader if you don't have that external support system yet. Like celebrating your own wins, being kind to yourself when you make mistakes.
That's so important. We're often our own worst critics.
And finally, they had this great advice about not taking mistakes too seriously.
Oh, yes. Learning to laugh at yourself.
Exactly. Because we all make mistakes, it's part of the learning process.
And often, other people don't even notice them as much as we think they do.
So instead of getting embarrassed and letting a mistake ruin your whole day, just try to brush it off and keep going.
And remember, the more you practice, the fewer mistakes you'll make.
So just to recap, what were some of the key takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, we talked about the importance of action, of not waiting until you feel confident before you start speaking,
Right, and prioritizing progress over perfection.
and being mindful of your self-talk, replacing those negative thoughts with positive affirmations,
And gradually exposing yourself to situations that challenge you, but in a manageable way.
and paying attention to your body language, standing tall, making eye contact, and smiling.
And surrounding yourself with supportive people and being your own cheerleader when needed.
And most importantly, not taking mistakes too seriously and learning to laugh at yourself.
Those are all fantastic tips, and I hope our listeners will try to put some of them into practice.
Remember, building confidence takes time and effort, but it's so worth it.
It is. And the more confident you feel, the more you'll enjoy speaking English and the more progress you'll make. So, as you go about your day today, I want you to think about this. What's one small step you can take to boost your confidence in speaking English?
It could be anything, just something small and achievable that will help you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident.
And remember, every little bit counts. You got this.
You do. Keep practicing and keep believing in yourself.
All right, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time.
See you then.